Hello and welcome to the Sandeman Street Podcast, a podcast covering Dundee FC and Dundee United by fans of both clubs. My name's Andrew and joining me today is my good friend Martin. Hello Martin.
How you doing, Andy? You alright?
Yeah, I'm good. Um, Hopefully people will tune into this. It's
Fingers crossed.
a bit of
Hear us waffling nonsense about the two teams.
well, yeah, and it's going to be a bit amateur, I think, to begin with, but bear with us whilst we figure out how to get into the podcasting world. So to begin with, I think the only place to start really is Dundee FC being the biggest basket case club in Scottish football and sacking a manager that's got them a top six finish. It's not something I necessarily really agreed with at the time, um, although having thought about it a bit more, I could see the reasons why, and this season really hasn't been good enough, especially from a defensive point of view. And last season was pretty much the same. Can't keep the ball at the net. Um, what's your thoughts on that from somebody that's not as invested?
It was a surprise for me, and it was certainly a surprise from United fans. I'm in group chats when United fans that I was speaking to, we certainly didn't see it coming. But I suppose when you look at the numbers, is it really a surprise? Like you say, defensively, I think yes, haven't been great this season defensively. Goal scoring wise, I'm not sure what your total is for the season, but it's not been particularly affluent going forward as well. So a bit of a surprise, but you can see why the Dundee owners have done it. But what we're thinking, sort of from the United side of the street, is who's going to replace the Dundee manager? Who's it going to be? Is it going to be somebody that can get you challenging for top six, challenging for those European places? I mean, personally, my own opinion, I think the problem at Dundee lies with the people that own it and the people that are putting the money into the club rather than the manager, because I like to try and be unbiased when I'm talking about Dundee, but for a good number of years you haven't really been a team that's competed for anything in the Premiership. I think you were top six last season, I think, but you haven't really pushed on and established yourself as the club you probably would have hoped to have been when you got bought over all those years ago by the Americans and the money that comes with that kind of thing. So yeah, it was a bit of a shock, but yeah, the numbers don't lie.
Well, the thing was with the Americans is that I'm obviously been very happy with the stability they've brought at the club's probably the most important thing. Like before they came in, the fans owned it. Before them, it was that daft bastard from Aberdeen, the boy Melville. Um, it was just about with for the past 30, 40 years, it's been a poorly run club until the Americans came in. So the stability they brought in is probably overall a good thing, but their choice of managers never been very good. I mean, just looking at the Pie and Bovril put up on Twitter X, whatever you want to call it, earlier today, as we record on Monday, the list of the bookies' favourites in the markets, and 4 to 5 you've got Sean Maloney as the favourite, but going down from there you've got Charlie Adam, John Kennedy, Darren O'Dea, David Healy, Ian Murray, Scott Brown and Stephen Robinson. Now obviously Stephen Robinson sitting at 10 to 1 is the name on that list everybody would want from a Dundee point of view, I'd imagine. I would want him. He's
Yeah.
never going to leave St Mirren at this point in time to come manage Dundee. So if you take his name out of that list, who's appealing to you? Sean Maloney lasted about 10 minutes at Hibs. Charlie Adam has been in one job and got sacked. John Kennedy's never been in a job. He took Celtic for a couple of weeks. And then the rest, David Healy, I mean, he's obviously done very well at Linfield, but is Linfield basically like winning the league in Scotland with Celtic, isn't it?
Pretty much. I mean, that's you look at that list. There's a lot of names on there that have either done a good job but at a lower level, or have tried the job at this level and haven't really done too well for themselves. Obviously, Stephen Robinson from St Mirren, he would be the standout candidate. But I think the only way you're going to prize him away is if you make him one hell of an offer for the weekly wage. But I don't know if you're in a position to do that. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. I did see the day after Tony Docherty got sacked, Sean Maloney seemed to be the name on a lot of Dundee fans' lips, which personally, as a United fan, if it was an appointment like that, I would be very much against it. I'm not really a fan of these young managers that are, I say just out the game. He's not played for quite a while now, but not a lot of experience managerial wise. I just think you see that happening sometimes, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. it is a bit of a risk, and it can pay off. You look at Hibs with David Gray, it's really paid off for them despite the very poor start of the season they've had. So it can go one of two ways if you go for the bookie's favourite Maloney. But it's a list of people that really, there isn't a shining candidate there, in my opinion.
No, Dundee have tended to go for the inexperienced kind of young up and coming manager. They've done it with Hartley, they've done it with Neil McCann, James McPake, and some of them have had varying degrees of success. James McPake got promoted through the playoffs, Hartley won the league. Neil McCann, in my opinion, signed well in his first summer, and I thought had us coming into looking like a bit of a good team, and then he lost two of his best players in January, right at the end of the window. Struggled through the rest of that season, stayed up, and then in the second summer it was just an absolute disaster. And between him and Jim McIntyre, it's the worst Dundee team I've ever seen. So I would like to experience. Stephen Robinson would obviously be somebody I would love to have as the manager. I don't think he would take it. I don't think Dundee could afford them. And I think they could afford his wages. I just don't think they could afford to get him out of St Mirren. And then you're having to ask him if he's actually wanting to leave St Mirren. Why would he, when he's got what he's got going on at St Mirren?
He's certainly built a no bad wee team at St Mirren. He's got playing some good stuff, and they've done really well this season to finish.
They're very similar to his Motherwell team. His Motherwell team were full of boys, athletes, but they were also good players. You had boys like Chris Cadden, Louis Moult, good players in that Motherwell team. Alan Campbell, I know that Alan Campbell's not done so well at United from what I've heard, but he was a very good player for Motherwell.
He was a good player at them, and that's what's confused us this season. To go off topic for a wee moment, you can see he's putting the effort in. It's not for a lack of trying, but it's just not worked for him at Tannadice for whatever reason this season. But certainly when he was at Motherwell, he was a really good player, and he's the player that you looked at thinking you would take him any day of the week.
I know. That Motherwell team was our arch nemesis. I don't think I think it was the 17-18 season. They had Trevor Carson in goal. They had the boy Keepery, I think it was, the centre half.
Yeah, I mind him.
The great spine through their team, and Louis Moult up front. And then they took away Louis Moult left in the January, I think, and they got the boy Main that we had, and he was good for them. So Stephen Robinson knows how to build a side in the Scottish Premier League, but.
And that's what you need. You need a manager that's going to get a good spine in the team, and Dundee have certainly got players that you can build around. Trevor Carson, he was at United, and I was really amazed when we let him go. A brilliant goalkeeper, and you just have to look at how he played in that Scottish Cup derby at Dens a few weeks after United won at Dens. He kept using that cup in that round. He was absolutely phenomenal, some of the saves he was pulling off. And then at the other end of the park, as much as I hate to admit this, Simon Murray's a brilliant football player. He's the kind of striker who I would have loved United to have had this season, because for as good as we've been, what I feel we've lacked is a player up front who's got real pace and energy about him. And Murray's got that in bucket loads. He's got pace, he's got energy, and he fires up that Dundee team. So if Dundee can get a manager in who can build a team of players around Murray and around, I can't remember the name of your centre half. Is it Portales? He gets quite good reviews from the Dundee fans. Who knows what you can do next season, but it is about your recruitment, managerial wise, and then on-field recruitment over the summer, which is easier said than done, as we all know. Every football fan knows.
Yeah. Well, I'm beginning to get to the situation where it's Dundee. I mean, the reason why I would have wanted to have kept Tony Docherty would have been stability. We've never been stable with a manager. Probably Hartley was there three and a bit years, I think. But other than that, we've never had, in my lifetime anyway, a stable. I haven't going to watch Dundee since 2001, and they've never had a period of 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons where they've had the same manager every single week. And I was actually reading up, the last time Dundee, a manager left Dens, and it wasn't because he resigned or got sacked, was Jim Duffy in the 90s.
That's going back a while.
And Jim Duffy's been back since then and had another go at it. So that tells you all you need to know about how stable the Dundee manager's job is. And I would have, in my opinion, I would have rather kept Tony Docherty and maybe let him learn from his mistakes, because the Dundee manager's job, the Dundee board, the Americans, as we were saying earlier, have always wanted to go young. And in manager terms, everybody always says this, but Tony Docherty is young. I mean, he's obviously been involved in football for a lot of years as a coach stroke assistant, but he's never managed himself. And I think this season would have been a really good learning thing for him, and he would have came back better next year. It's just the constant turnaround.
See, I think what happens when you've got an owner who's got a wee bit of cash, they're wanting a return from the investment now. They're wanting the wins yesterday, and when they appoint a manager and they've got the money to sack him and then rehire, they don't get that time. Whereas you look at a club like Livingston, who have had David Martindale in for a good few years now, they've not got the money to go sacking and rehiring. But one thing they've had is stability in the managerial role. I know they've been quite unstable in terms of where they've been in the leagues. They've been up and down, and hopefully, I don't want to see them coming up tonight, but we'll see what the score is with them in Ross County tonight. But they've had Martindale in there for a good few years now, and he's on the verge of getting them back into the Premier League now. And if they went sacking and rehiring, they might not have got that.
No, I don't think so. I think David Martindale's absolutely perfect for Livingston, and by the sounds of it, and from what you see when you get a bit of an inside glimpse into Livingston, he kind of just runs it himself. They've obviously got the board of directors, the chairman, whatever, who'll set him a budget and whatever, but he kind of gets free rein. And I'm telling you something, if you were to give me the names, take away Stephen Robinson, because we've spoken about him, the names on the list that we went through earlier, I wouldn't, but you offered me any of them or David Martindale, I'd take David Martindale. And the problem I think with Dundee is that they would want involved too much in what he does, rather than just let him go away and manage the team, bring in the signings. Because you've seen, like, on more in-depth interviews where he's had sit-downs on Sky, whatever, Open Goal, when he does them podcasting, you see the level of kind of detail to go into when they're signing every player. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't happen with other managers, but Livingston, for the budget that he has had in the past 7-8 years, tend to get their signings right.
And that's what it's all about.
If you give a big, well, exactly, you live and die by it. And if you give him a bigger budget, I reckon he could be a good manager beyond Dundee's level. I would 100% welcome him. I don't know if Dundee could get him or not. I'd hope they could from Livingston, but I would definitely take him.
I totally agree with what you're saying. He would be a good manager to have, but my question would be he be a good fit at a club like Dundee, or a club like United for that matter, a club that's got big ambitions to be a big club off the field, and who maybe are inclined to err against the one guy running it all kind of operation? Because personally, I think that's the way to go forward. You know, United have had a very bad experience with Mr. Asgar in recent years.
Right.
Yeah, big fan of his. He ran a lot of things off the field, and I really believe that it's he's to blame for why Robbie Nielsen left. And at first it was good, but it went sour very quick. And it's just, I don't know if Martindale would put up with that kind of thing, to be honest with you.
Well, I think that if you look into like the director of football or that role, it's here to stay. And I think in Scotland we'll get constantly pulled towards this idea that the director of football is going into the manager's ear and saying, "Did I play him," and all this sort of stuff. That just isn't what happens.
No.
It probably does happen on some occasions, but
there's maybe a bit of influence here and there.
Yeah, but in the majority, they're absolutely not what happens. And you need to think about it. Like these guys are going to be speaking to agents. They're dealing with contracts. It takes a lot of the work away from a manager. If you get a good one in, like I think that Malky Mackay's probably been good for David Gray this season. I probably think that Malky Mackay's maybe saved David Gray from getting the sack.
Yeah, definitely.
Because he's a football guy. He's been involved in football for God knows how long. And when the board were maybe kind of panicking October, November time when Hibs were toiling a bit, he's maybe stepped in and goes, "No, look, there's signs here, and look how it's turned out. Hibs have finished third at a canter."
You look at how it turned out with Man United and Alex Ferguson. He didn't have the best start, but the rest is history, is it?
Well, maybe on a different level, I suppose.
Bit of a different level, but sometimes it goes to prove that if you stick instead of twisting it, it pays off in the end.
Definitely. Anyway, moving on. The we're going to have a look back at our seasons. First of all, what do you give your season a mark out of 10?
I don't believe there is anything. I don't believe that 10 out of 10 is possible. There's no such thing as perfection, but I think this season, for all its ups and downs and some unsavoury moments, it's got to be as close to a 10 as you can actually get. I mean, newly promoted from the Championship last season to then go and finish fourth on the final day with a win against Aberdeen, European football in your first season back. It's, what is there to complain? We've scored heaps of goals. We've had a fairly tight defence this season. The football at times hasn't been very entertaining, but at times it's been very entertaining. So yeah, I think it's been a very good season, and certainly a season that I don't think any United fan would have expected at the start, to finish at this position in the league and to have stayed here for so long. I remember I heard a stat getting mentioned in a group chat that I'm in a few days back, and apparently, whether this is true or not, I don't know, but I would be inclined to believe it. At half time against Aberdeen, we were sitting sixth in the table, obviously with St Mirren being ahead at Celtic Park. And apparently that position in the league was the lowest position we have been in since August last year. So that speaks for itself. The fact that we've sat consistently in the top six all season. You can't complain having just been promoted. You really cannot. So, aye, as close to 10 out of 10 as possible. What about yourself? What do you think? It's been quite different fortunes across the road at Dens, but you have stayed up, which is the main thing. You can only hope to build on that next season,
After last season and doing so well, when we first came up, we didn't manage to quite get Europe. I had a lot of optimism. We were over in Poland for pre-season, took in one of the games over there, and we started off a season. I actually thought the first game of the season when we played at Tannadice, Dundee were very, very poor for the standard that they were producing through that League Cup. And I know they're not playing great teams, but they were playing very, very well in that League Cup. I know you're talking about a team like Bonnyrigg who have just been relegated to the league completely, but went through there. I think it was maybe that first game in that League Cup group stage, and it was just Dundee were absolutely battered them.
I mean, Dundee's were scoring goals for fun in that group
I
stage.
know, they beat Inverness 7-6-0,
Yeah.
and you were tanking teams, and yeah, you're playing against lesser opponents, but you could see that they were really firing on all cylinders, and then they turned up at Tannadice, and you just knew when that game got set, like the fixtures came out, and you knew Dundee were at Tannadice first game of the season. I could have called that from the moment it happened, it was going to be a draw, because United were never going to lose that game. How often do newly promoted teams get beat on their first day?
It happens a lot, and I'll be honest with you, at that game, I remember thinking we probably should have went on to win it. We had a fair few chances that we didn't take, which has been a bit of an issue of ours this season, but I just put that down to the fact that, like I said earlier, we don't have that pacey, energetic striker that I feel could have taken some of these chances. But I do remember at that opening game, the 2-2 derby, at full time I just thought to myself, right, these are two good teams that are playing open attacking football. We'll be okay, we won't get relegated this season, and Dundee will probably have a half decent season as well. That was my thoughts at the time.
Well, the thing was is that we played that game, and I think it was after the United chance that they had where the boy was clearing on goal, and rather than rounding the goalie, he's dinked it, and Lyle Cameron cleared it off the line.
Yeah, that was Trapanovsky, I think.
I think from then Dundee took a bit of charge of the game.
Yeah.
They got their equaliser, and then Curtis Main should have won it at the end.
Yeah, that was
with his chance at the front post. But then the week after we played Hearts, and I know Hearts didn't start the season very well, and Naismith ultimately got sacked. But Dundee in that first half were outstanding. They absolutely battered them, and you were thinking at that game, right, we could be onto something this season. I'm not saying that we're going to go and finish third or anything like that, but we could have done what we done last season and maybe done a wee bit better. But then losing Luke McCowan on the last day of the transfer window just killed it.
It didn't help me.
I know losing one player shouldn't do that to a team, but it just
it shouldn't have, but it totally can. And football fans at every club will say, "Oh, one or two players shouldn't make a team," but we've all seen it happen. I remember when Mackay Stephen and Armstrong left United, that infamous transfer window. it wrecked us. We were not half the team we were before the two of them left, and
It must totally
it can totally
demoralise you, the
happen.
rest of the team,
Totally,
eh?
totally. Especially when you're told by your owner, if I remember correctly, they're not getting sold. To then be sold on the 11th hour on the last day, it's like it totally throws the chemistry of the team up in the air.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we obviously had the rest of the team, but if I was to mark the season out of 10, I would maybe say a 5 or a 6. I mean, staying in the Premier League, for Dundee need to strive to be like a Kilmarnock or like a Motherwell or a St Mirren and put together a run of years where they're in that league consistently for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years without getting relegated. So staying in the league is a success, but I guarantee you they were spending more money than some of the teams that finished comfortably above them.
See, I'd like to hear from your point of view. You look at United, we've been up and down a couple of times over the last 10 years. When we got promoted back 3 or 4 years ago, I think it was, we ended up in Europe the season that Jack Ross was in charge for the first few games, went on to get relegated. Got relegated, got promoted, and that's us back in Europe again. You must look at us and think, how can United do that? What are they doing that we're not doing? What do you think Dundee need to do to be able to really kick on and build a good team to do what United are doing?
Well, I'll tell you something that United have got in their favour is a bigger budget, and that's just facts. United have got more season ticket holders than Dundee. They can afford to spend a bit more money straight off the bat. If your budget was set by your season ticket revenue, then United have got a bigger budget. Now, I know that the boy Ogren's no spending money willy-nilly like he was when he first came in, but United's budget will be bigger than Dundee's.
I think it probably would be.
So you've got to take that into consideration. Now, I know that United didn't necessarily sign a lot of players when they got promoted, but I mean, I would remember sitting and you were seeing all the pundits doing their predictions for where people were going to finish in the league and where people were going to, who was going to finish in the Europe and who was going to win the league, who was going to get relegated. United were getting tipped to get relegated from quite a lot of people, and I just remember thinking to myself, Jim Goodwin is never going to let that United team get relegated. Jim Goodwin will bore the tits off everybody before United get relegated. Now, I know that they've not done that the entire season, but United's start probably helped them most. I remember thinking September, October, November time, United's bubble has got to burst. United's bubble has got to burst. Surely at some point they're going to go on a bit of a run where they're going to pick up a lot of wins. They maybe get beat 2 or 3 games in a row, and it just never seemed to happen. I mean, the epitome of that was I don't remember exactly what happened, but they had a 3-3 draw at Rugby Park against Killie.
Yeah, Louis Moult scored.
And did they not score 2 goals in injury time or something?
I think Craig Sibbald, he equalised sort of late on in that game. It didn't equalise, sorry. He got a second goal for us late on. I think there was about 10 minutes to go, and then Ross Graham put away a penalty in the 99th minute, I think it was. It was deep into stoppage time anyway. Very deep into stoppage time. And that's the thing about United this season. For so many years I've said all I want is a team that's got a bit of dig about them, a bit of fight about them. But we never seem to have it. But this season, credit where it's due, that United team, it didn't always go to plan, and it wasn't always the case, but for the large part, these players never gave up. And I'll tell you what, for the first season in a long time, we had a squad of players there that dug in. They were streetwise. They would give it their all, and they would get the results. I mean, I'm just looking at the opening sort of couple of months fixtures here. After that 2-2 draw with Dundee, it was a 1-1 draw with Ross County the weekend after it. The boy Ronan Hale scored in the 95th minute to make it 1-1, and that's a game that we really should have had out of sight, out of mind. Miller Thompson missed an absolute sitter in I think it was the first few minutes of that game. But he didn't score it, and that's that. We then go on and get a 2-0 win against St Johnstone, a 1-0 win against St Mirren, and then the next month, a couple of results that weren't really great for us. We got beat by Rangers, but you're always expecting that. Beat by Motherwell in the Cup, and then that 3-3 draw with Kilmarnock. But it was a solid start of the season, and that can really... A solid start of the season can make or break it. That season that we got into Europe after... So when we were down in the Championship for that little period between 2016 and 2019-2020 during COVID, obviously we got promoted, and then the season after we qualified for Europe. What got us that European spot that season was the fact that for the first half of that season we just weren't conceding goals. We weren't scoring many goals, but we weren't conceding many goals.
Yeah, I mean, looking at United, that's probably what's been one of their biggest, and I think you'll be able to correct me if I'm wrong here. I think probably their biggest struggle of the season has come off the back of losing Kevin Holt and not being able to replace him because it was out with the transfer window. Now I'm not saying that Kevin Holt's any sort of superstar. He's a decent enough player, but he seemed to be kind of key for your back four, back three.
He absolutely was.
And I think that maybe came along with a couple of injuries as well.
Yeah.
And at that time, your form dipped a bit.
It definitely did.
He went away to have been what happened anyway.
He went away to Derry City, and then after that, Will Ferry's been carrying an injury. Declan Gallagher was out. Ross Graham, he hasn't been fully fit for the last few months, so the defence was a bit ramshackle at times. And for the last few weeks of the season, we've had Savelge playing at centre back, and he's not a centre back, but credit where it's due, he's actually done a decent job there when asked. You know what I mean? So, yeah, losing Holt, a player who's a bit older and is by no means a flair player or somebody that's going to steal the show, but just a player that, like I was saying earlier, has got that dig and has got that determination to just get his heels in and not accept anything less than 100% from himself and his teammates around him.
Yeah. So I think you're maybe 8, 9 out of 10 this season. I'm more of a 6. Injuries wrecked Dundee's season, as well as losing probably their best player, Luke McCowan. And I mean, I would never deny Luke McCowan. He's moved to his team. He's a Celtic supporter. Dundee made a bit of dough off it when he was in the last year of his contract. I know that we're all wanting the best players to stay with our club, but I just kind of put myself into that camp of saying I grudge Luke McCowan a move to Celtic. It's just I can't. Like,
it's part and parcel of supporting a club like United or Dundee.
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen it, boys like Nacho Novo go in, and there's been many a player that's worn tangerine over the last decade that's ended up going to Celtic. Not so much Rangers, but we've lost a lot of talent to Celtic, and as frustrating as it's just, there's nothing you can do about it. It's just the way it is.
No, and I think a lot of what I think about it is the way that you do it. So you mentioned Nacho Novo didn't do it in a very good way. Doesn't get a good reception. Luke McCowan knew Celtic were interested in him. There was obviously a lot of interest from Hibs. Whether he wanted to go there or not, we don't know. But whilst all that rumours were going on, he still played for Dundee every week. Played well. Looked like he was wanting to play for Dundee. He got his move. He came out and said thanks very much. He come back and he scored at Dens. He done the right thing and didn't celebrate. Now I'm a bit funny on that. So he scored down at the Dundee end at Dens and he didn't celebrate. But see if he scored at the Celtic end and he just went to the Celtic fans and celebrated with them, I wouldn't have had a problem with that either. It's just the way that you celebrate. If you come running over to Dundee fans kissing his badge like what Nacho Novo did, you could get the fuck.
It's not the best way to preserve your legacy with your club, is it?
It's all to do with just showing a bit of respect, and
Totally.
I thought Luke McCowan was very good at that,
Totally.
so fair play to him, and hopefully he has a successful career at Celtic. But going back to Dundee's season, I think injuries, losing their player, kind of killed them a bit. Once they got, see if they had Shaughnessy for the full season, I'm not saying that they would have been right up into the top 6, but I think they would have been a few points better off. But I mean, even then, saying that, I think they finished on 42 points, there or thereabouts. Usually when you finish on 42 points, you'd be safe by March. And it took them to the last day of the season to be safe from the playoffs.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a strange season in that regard.
Yeah, it was a funny one down at the bottom end. You've got weeks where St Johnstone are beating Celtic, total fluke results. It's just hard for yous to really sort of kick on and get yourself 3, 6, 9 points ahead of where you need to be and sort of enter that safety bracket when teams below you are getting results against Celtic, and it doesn't make it any easier.
No, that's a killer. You've got St Johnstone, who, I'm not saying this to be controversial or anything, but they're the worst team I've seen this season by us. I mean, other than Ross County...
I mean, they got relegated for a reason, didn't they?
Yeah, they got relegated for a reason. Other than Ross County have beat us 3 times this season, but they come to Dens last week and they were terrible. But other than that, St Johnstone have been the worst team I've seen. They get 3 points off of Celtic, and you're like, God, give us a chance.
It's funny, we played them the week after it, and I can't remember. I think it was 1-0 it finished that game. Can't remember who scored, but I actually thought they looked decent. They've got a little striker, I can't mind his name, but he was lively, he was in about the box, and I remember thinking, if they can keep up like this in that bottom 6 after the split, they might be okay. But they just never did. They just never kicked on, and ultimately, yeah, the rest is history.
Oh, anyway, we'll move on. What we're going to do here is we're going to rank each other's signings for the season. So we'll start off with United. If you bear with me, I will get United's signings this season up. So we'll start off, which I think is going to be a good one. Will Ferry, what do you reckon?
My player of the season, to be honest with you. He's been absolutely brilliant and a joy to watch at left back. He really has been. What a player. Energy, skill, pace, great at crossing the ball. What more do you need from a fullback? And a professional as well. He's mad about United. He loves the club, and a real pleasure to watch him. He's been a great player this season, and to get him on a free as well. Like we've got a few players on a free, a lot of loan players this season that are obviously on a free. But no, what a player! Brilliant signing.
Okay, and next one, I would like if they put the positions next to these because I don't recognise this person, but Dave Richards.
Yeah, so he's the goalkeeper that's been playing for us the last couple of games. Obviously, Jack Walton, brilliant goalkeeper and has done really well for us for the last couple of seasons, but I think every United fan has been under no false illusion that he was not going to be staying with us. So Dave Richards, he came in from Crewe Alexandra, I think it was we got him from on a free, and he looks a decent goalkeeper. A bit of a heart in the mouth moment at Ibrox the other week, but that happens to the best of them, you know what I mean? But yeah, a good signing, and I think we've got a good goalkeeper there for next season, unless we decide to put him back on the bench and get another keeper in.
Okay, well, the next one, I'm going to butcher this, but Vichko Sevelj.
You've not butchered that at all.
He's a good player,
Gambit, he is a good player, and again, he's a player that could have been my player of the season. I was going to say he's a close second, but I don't think that's fair given how well Dalby's done this season. But a great player, middle of the park, pulls the strings, rarely puts a foot wrong, covers a lot of ground. A fantastic signing. And one of these players that, he's came from a club, NK Radom. I'm not even going to try and pronounce who he came from, but a team that you've never heard of, a player that you've never heard of, to come in and sort of hit the ground running as he did. It's what you want to see from these boys.
Okay, and then next one, Ryan Strain. I thought he was good at St Mirren. Not seen a lot of him for United.
I thought he was good at St Mirren as well. And you know what? I think he's been good at United. A couple of wee questions over him at times. I think he can be quite a defensive-minded defender, obviously. I think sometimes he lacks the intent to go forward sometimes, it can be a bit frustrating when you're in a game that you're looking to sort of dominate. You've got the better of the ball, you're wanting your fullbacks to pile up, but that's maybe just not his game. And at the end of the day, he's a defender, and he's defended solidly for us. So yeah, another good signing. You know what I
mean? Okay, the next one, though, you've got the two Macedonians. So Christian Trapanovsky and David Babunski.
Trapanovsky, he is somebody who
takes a game against Dundee anyway.
He does take a game against Dundee. That first game of the season, I think all the United fans were thinking, here we've got a really exciting little sort of jinky winger that can get the ball at his feet, take boys on and run with the ball, and he showed it in flashes this season, but I was hoping for more from him this season. I think if he can get a good run of games under his belt next season, there's definitely a player in there. And I would love to see him come out because there is undoubtable talent in there, but he just needs to be a bit more consistent and show it more often, because when he's on his game, he plays really well. Like I say, he's a player that gets the ball at his feet and runs, something that seems to be totally dying from the game nowadays. And it's what fans want to see. Fans don't want to see pass. Fans want to see fast players taking the ball, running at defenders, and he can't do that. So a good signing. Happy with him this season. He's done well, but I think there's more to come from him next season.
Okay. Now, going down this list, I think this is from Wikipedia, so this shows you how good my research is, but all them were free. So you've got Ferry, Richard, Sevelj, Strain, Trapanovsky and Babunski, all free. And then the next two, you paid money for. Now, the first one, Jort van de Sand. I mean, I've seen him a couple of times, and I wouldn't pay a fiver for him, never mind an undisclosed fee. And the next one I've never even heard of, Richard O'Dada.
Yeah, Van der Sand. I don't think there's ever been a United player who I've wanted to score more in my life. He seems to be a fan favourite, despite the fact that I think he's maybe had one or two shots on goal this whole season. He's turned himself into a bit of a cult hero for his lack of ability. A total flop, but again, a player who, when he was on, you could see him trying. He obviously just never fitted into the system that we played. I don't think playing a player like him, a player who's not got really much pace about them, a slower player, up against a player like Sam Dalby was ever going to work. So I think maybe he was just a victim of the system that we played, because you see the videos on Facebook and Twitter of him, and he's scored some really good goals in his time, but just no for us, unfortunately. So I think he'll be out the door this summer, and good luck to him wherever he ends up. But no, he'll not be remembered as a goal scorer for United.
Well, the next 2 or 3 transfers, we'll go to the loan ones in a minute, obviously, but you've got, now I'm definitely going to butcher this name, Meshak, I'm not going to say the second name, I think he's known as Meshak.
Yeah, he just gets called Meshak.
And the other one is Alan Campbell. Now, we've already spoken about Alan Campbell, but Meshak, I mean, who is he? I've never even heard of him.
To be honest with you, I've missed a few games this season, and the games that I have missed seems to be the games that he's been playing in, so I've not actually seen too much of him myself. One game he did score in, a game that I was absolutely gutted to miss this season, was the 3-2 win at Tannadice against Hibs. They were 2-1 up with going into stoppage time. The boy Joe Newell, got sent off in the last 10 minutes.
Oh, I remember that.
Aye, I was actually away on holiday at that point. Apparently after that red card, it was just barrage after attack for United. Lucas Stevenson got the second goal. You're thinking, yeah, we've saved a point here. And then, if I remember correctly, their keeper's had a bit of a humdinger, and he's punched it out, and it's landed right at Meshak's feet outside the box. He's just hit it on the half volley. Can't remember if it's a half volley or a volley, but he's hit it, and it's sort of hit the underside of the bar and went in. And I think that's really the only thing he's done for us this season. So he's got us 3 points, that would have cost us 4th place if he hadn't scored that goal. So yeah, he's played his bit, but again, a player that he hasn't really contributed much, but yeah, he hasn't done badly. And
well, there we go. Well, what we'll do is I'll just go right through all the loan ones, because there's only a handful of them. So, I mean, all these ones I've heard of, so they've obviously done something right. So you've got Jack Walton, Emmanuel Adeboyega, Lucas Stevenson, Sam Dalby, Ruri Payton, and Lewis Fiorini.
I mean, that's a good mix of players. Obviously, there's regular starting names in there. Jack Walton, obviously, fantastic keeper. Brilliant keeper for us, and quite sad to see him go, actually, although I do think we could get a keeper that's, I don't even know how to put this in words, to be honest with you. He's a very good goalkeeper, but he does have a little bit of shakiness about him sometimes. But he's a very good shot stopper, and he's been very good for us, and he's won us points. He's chipped in over the last 2 seasons, and he's been a really good goalkeeper to watch. So yeah, I was buzzing at the start of the season when we got him back. I think every United fan was. And another player that's kind of sad to see go, but he'll go on to bigger and better things in United. I think we were always going to be a stepping stone for him. He's going to be challenging for that number 1 jersey at Luton Town next season, I think. So, yeah.
Well, they've just been relegated, haven't they?
Yeah, they have been.
Double back-to-back relegation.
They have been. So if he does stay, it's a good opportunity for him to try and push for that spot if they can afford to keep him. I don't know what their finances are like, but yeah, who knows what he'll get up to. But aye, brilliant player for us. And looking further down that list, boys like Adeboyega, the Irish defender on loan from Norwich, solid. A bit of a crazy one, I think. There was a few moments of the season where a leg would go flying out at an opposition player, and you're thinking, oh, what are you doing? But overall, a solid defender, and a pacey defender. Somebody who complemented Declan Gallagher, somebody who's no got overly large amounts of pace. I think having Adeboyega next to him was a really good sort of partnership, and the two of them were quite solid, I thought. Obviously, moving further down that list, you've got the 2 English boys, Lucas Stevenson on loan from Liverpool. What a player he was. Gutted when he went off. I can't remember who he went off against. It was in the derby, wasn't it? It was against Uslot that he went off injured.
Was that the head injury?
I think it was. I can't even remember. It might have been the head injury, but it came out a week or 2 after that he'd been playing for ages with a hernia. So he's obviously been putting in some shift with a hernia, and to be doing that just again shows his commitment. A player that I would love to get back next season, but if he's at Liverpool, I really cannot see us stumping the money up. You're talking probably hundreds of thousands of pounds, and another sort of Dylan Levitt situation. I think we paid about 400,000 for him. I can't see us shelling the money out for him, which is a shame. But you know what? Another player who's more than contributed to the team, and he'll be missed. As will Sam Dalby, who was
scored bar loads of goals.
Yeah, he did score bar loads of goals. A great player for us. Very much a number 9. He's not the kind of striker that's going to get the ball at his feet and do anything with it himself. He needs good service into the box, and luckily with people like Will Ferry and Ryan Strain, when he gets forward, he was getting that service in. He had a few goals this season from Glenn Middleton putting the ball in the box. Fantastic player. Some amount of goals. I think he's got the highest goals tally this season. He's got the most goals in a season since John Daly, and I think 2012. So it's been a while since we've had a prolific goal scorer like him. He'll be one that we miss next season, and we need to.
That'll
make
be
sure
top flight, though, surely. A top flight start.
Top flight start,
yeah.
Yeah.
Shankland.
I think
Shankland
definitely would have been on track to beat that had the season not been curtailed for COVID. But he's the first player in the top flight to get as much goals as John Daly in a season, I think it was. I can't remember exactly what the numbers were, but yeah, we need to replace him, definitely. He was a core element of the team, and that was the worry. The worry was if he got injured, we'd have been kind of buggered going forward. So a good bit of recruitment in the summer to replace him is vital for us next season.
Well, yeah, definitely. Now, before we go on to the Dundee ones, if you've got the list there, I'd just like to say that 27 minutes in, it's 2-0 Ross County.
Oh,
so it looks like you'll be another jaunt up to the Highlands next season unless Livingston can get 2 goals.
You know anyway. What? I was wanting Ross County to lose this tie, to win the tie. Sorry, because Livy are a team that United have got a very poor head-to-head record against. But living in Glasgow, it's convenient to get to. So if you're talking away games, Livy would have been good. But who knows? It's only the 29th minute, so there's plenty of time left.
So we'll move on to the Dundee ones. You can hit me with them.
Yeah, let's get the Dundee players up. Let's see what's going on. So players in. What are you thinking? Some of these players. I'm looking at the list just now. John McCracken, Clark Robertson, Seb Palmer Holden, Ethan Ingram, Simon Murray, of course. I can probably guess what you're going to say about him. Ziad Larkesh, I don't think I've butchered his name. Billy Kumieto, Sammy Braybrook, Julian Vetro, and Adewumi. I'm not going to even try his first name. How have they all played for you this season?
Oh, McCracken, hit and a miss. Last season he came in when Carson was injured, and he done a bit alright actually. I think we need to all remember that he is a young goalie. He's had a few mistakes this season. I've always preferred Carson. I've liked Carson ever since he was at Motherwell. So if you've got him and he's fit, he plays, in my opinion. He's the best goalie we've got, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So yeah, McCracken's had a few errors. We'll see how he kicks on in his career, whether it's here or whether it's elsewhere.
Was he the one that was he called up to the Scotland squad? Am I right in thinking?
He was, yeah.
I thought that.
Beginning of the season, he was in a couple of the squads, yeah. But then after that, he's out the team. Mm-hmm. Clark Robertson, I was quite hopeful about him. I thought that they signed him. He's a left-sided centre-half, play him alongside Shaughnessy. They've played with each other at Aberdeen years ago. They've obviously know each other. He spent the majority of his career playing at a good level in England. I thought that would have been a good signing, but he's been very hit or a miss, and he's been injured a lot, so it's a bit of a strange one. Palmer Holden, I've been impressed with him. He's your typical English loan player, in my opinion. I think when you get all these boys up for England, they're huge. Mm-hmm. They might even be the same height as some of the Scottish players, but they just look bigger.
Yeah, they do.
I don't know what it is about them. But yeah, I've been relatively impressed with him. He's been okay. He's just signed for Gillingham, actually, in a 3-year deal. So that might be one of the things that's cost us with not having a manager, but you never know.
Yeah.
Ethan Ingram. Now, Ethan Ingram started the season okay. He then tailed off a bit. He had a few poor games. He got dropped. They brought him in for a handful of games because of injuries and suspensions around the kind of January time. I think he played in the draw against Rangers, the draw against Celtic, and he played in the Cup Derby, and he was pretty good. And there was one where he had a really good block off the line against United, and he was steady in all them games, and then you never seen him again for the rest of the season. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to judge them.
Yeah, it's funny. You get these players that sometimes just fall by the wayside for no apparent reason.
Yeah,
they've not played particularly bad, but they've maybe not played particularly well enough to merit a solid spot in the team, and they just kind of fade away into the ether and they're never to be heard of again.
Simon Murray, no, there's absolutely no need to discuss him. He's the player of the season. by a mile.
I think
I'll
so.
tell you something though, the name after that, Larkesh, he would have been challenging in my opinion if he hadn't had the injury at Aberdeen, and he was out for about 3 or 4 months after that. He was right up there. He was a very good player. I'm just unfortunate he was only on loan. Very good left back, and I'll tell you the biggest compliment you can give him, that a lot of the Dundee fans forgot about Owen Beck because he was there, and Owen Beck was outstanding. So yeah, that's the biggest compliment I can give him. Cometio, hit or a miss, got a long injury, never really played after that. Sammy Braybrook didn't play. Julian Vetto didn't play. Adewumi, peaks and troughs is probably the best way to describe him.
Yeah.
There was a bit of a running joke going on within the Dundee fans. He was good when he was on the telly. So if he wasn't on the telly, he wasn't great. If he was on the telly, he was Maradona.
Yeah, like the headlines, maybe.
Yeah. But he was decent enough. A young laddie on loan for coming. He signed for Burnley in the summer and then went straight on loan to Dundee. And he was in Austria before that. He's a young laddie in a new country. I mean, yeah, he's done all right.
He's obviously a player that Burnley want to get some game time, just see if they can maybe get a return on their investment, maybe a wee future first team player for them, or maybe sell him for a bit of cash. But I think looking at that list of players that you've got there, I think for me certainly the standout, and again, I hate to admit this, is Simon Murray. Brilliant player, fantastic player, and like I said earlier on, a player that I would have loved to have had at United, or maybe not him, but a player like him, a real fast, electronic, sort of electric striker that gets about the box, harries defenders, and really G's his own team up. I mean, you've seen that at the derby when United lost at Tannadice 4-2. He's going down that tunnel and he's giving all that to the Dundee fans. He's getting the Dundee players riled up as well. And that's what you need in big games, and he certainly brought it for Dundee. In the derbies anyway, I don't know if he done it in many of the other games, but I think he loves playing against United. And he certainly loves scoring against United, much to my frustration.
A bit of stick.
Yeah, he certainly does get a bit of stick. Sometimes it's a wee bit too much. I seen him, he was hit by that vape at Tannadice, which is really, there's no need for that. It doesn't matter how much your rivalry is, don't go chucking things at players. But yeah, he certainly is a player who gets plenty of stick from United fans.
Well, I mean, looking at the rest of this, there's the winter signings here as well. So you've got Scott Fraser, who wasn't a winter signing, but he's been classed in that.
Yeah.
I mean, really disappointed in Scott Fraser. Not anything to do with him. He can't help, he's injured. But he was basically signed to be the replacement for McCowan, and he played about 3 games and got injured, and then you never seen him again. I think he played maybe a game, or he contributed in a couple of games since he got back. But
he's got a good left foot on him. He was at United obviously as a sort of a kid, but I think when he was young, he was in the academy at Tannadice sort of the same time as Ryan Gauld, I think, and he was apparently a more highly rated player than Gauld. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it's just what I've heard. But I think he had a leg break when he was quite young, which really hampered his progress. And at Tannadice, he was a player that had a wonderful left foot on him most of the time, and he was a good player at Tannadice. But again, I think there was maybe some attitude problems. Maybe he didn't apply himself to the game for the full 90 minutes at times, and he would get distracted by things, and it was a pity because he was a real player that could have done a bit more at Tannadice back in the day. And it was very interesting to see him go to Dens, because you're thinking there's a good player in there. There's definitely a good player in there.
I mean, they got him from Charlton. He was on loan at Hearts last season,
He was.
the second half of last season. I don't think he contributed as much as he would have liked to there because of injury, but he was on loan at Hearts from Charlton. But I think when he was initially at Charlton, I don't know, I don't watch Charlton, but from what I've heard, he was okay. He was very good for Burton. I think he left United to go to Burton.
Yeah.
And he subsequently went from there to Ipswich, I think, and then Charlton. And I mean, you didn't play for teams like that if you're a mug.
No,
so
you definitely
I think he could have, a fully fit Scott Fraser could have been a real asset for us this season.
I mean, you look
and
at
it was
that
just
list
a
of
pity.
clubs he's been at, he's obviously knuckled down, he's got his head in the game, and he's really improved himself as a player, and has just been unlucky with injuries.
Yeah. I mean, going through the rest of that, let's just to wrap up this section. I mean, you've got Sean Kelly, who came in on a short-term deal. He done okay. He contributed in the games that he had to play in. You've got Cesar Garza, who is on loan from a team in Mexico we've got a link with. He's been okay in the games he's played in. He looks a bit lightweight. he's okay. He's no great. He's no shite basically. Aaron Donnelly, loved Aaron Donnelly as a player last season. When he first came in, he hit the ground running. He struggled towards the end of the season, but he's still only young. He's on a 3-year deal. I'm hoping that he could really kick on. Amari Samuels, never seen enough of him. Another one of the players who have signed and never played. And then Victor Lopez. If he doesn't go back to Mexico in the summer, I would be amazed. He's played about 10 minutes of football against Airdrie in the Cup, and he looked like a junior player. And apparently he's playing in reserve games, and he looked like a junior player in them as well. So
I think it's safe to say he'll probably be gone there now.
I think it'd be amazed if he stays next season.
Before you wrap up this wee section about the transfers, there's a player I want to ask you about. It's Scott Tiffany. A player that I used to love watching when United were in the Championship. He played for Partick Thistle at the time, and he's a player that I would have loved us to have got our hands on back then, but we just never did. There's rumour is that with him being out of contract this summer, United are apparently sniffing. Is he a player that you'd not like to lose from Dens? Would you like to see him stay, or has he not contributed that much? I know he's been getting games and he has been scoring.
Here and there, he's another peaks and troughs player for me. When he's good, he can be brilliant. When he's no good, he can be really bad. Yeah. He finished the season very well. In the last 2 games, he came on as a sub at half time against Ross County. He scored the goal. He played very well at St Johnstone last game this season. He's a player I like. I mean, I like, people will call me a dinosaur, but I like 4-4-2, flying wingers, overlapping fullbacks, a big striker and a wee striker. That's the type of football I like to watch, and he's very back to that sort of era of football where he gets the ball and squares up his fullback and wants to go at them. So, yeah, he's been offered the contract. Obviously, he's not going to sign it without a manager there, but I'd be disappointed if he did leave.
Yeah, who knows?
But anyway, moving on, we're going to do now your favourite game of the season. What would be your favourite United game of the season that you've been to?
There's a lot of games that I would have on that list had I not missed them. I missed the 2 games at Tannadice against Aberdeen this season, the last minute Kevin Holt winner. I missed the game at the end of the season there, that we beat them 2-1. I missed that 3-2 game against Hibs, which was the 2 goals in stoppage time. So there's 3 games that would have been contenders. But for me, my game of the season would be the 1-0 win away at St Mirren. I can't remember exactly when that was. It was probably November time-ish. Let me see if I can find that. I can't remember exactly when it was, but it was away at St Mirren, and it was a cold, dark Saturday night. So it was definitely around that sort of winter period of games. It wasn't a pretty game to watch. It was only 1-0 United, but it was one of these games that we really dug in. And you'll know yourself, there are games in a season that you feel like you've got to win. I remember a couple of seasons ago when we were in the Championship, there was a Tuesday night game against Greenock Morton, and it was one of these ones, obviously with Raith Rovers pushing us for that title. We were going there, and the form had kind of dipped with United and Raith at the time, and it was one of these must-win games, and we did go on and win it. And after that, you really felt like we were going to win this league. And that St Mirren game had a bit of that same feeling. It was a game that, you know, both teams were playing quite well at the time. Both teams were evenly-ish matched. And winning that, it just, you left that ground thinking, you know what, that's really going to cement us in that top 6 this season. And I think it certainly did. And it's a game that's also got my goal of the season and the United goal of the season, Louis Moult's bicycle kick in that game. What a bit of skill from the guy.
Well, that covers your next section as well then. So, goal of the season and game of the season.
Yeah. I think Walton had an absolute cracker of that game as well. He saved the penalty from the boy. Is it Olasanya that plays for them up front?
Mm-hmm.
He got a penalty, a dubious penalty, I would say, but a penalty nonetheless. And justice was done when Walton saved it, but there was another couple of saves in that game that were absolutely brilliant. It was down at the other end from where the away fans sit, but I just remember seeing the ball flying towards the goal, and somehow out of nowhere he's got his hand up to it, and you're thinking, my God, this is heart and mouth stuff here. But yeah, that's definitely my game of the season. Not for the enjoyment factor or for the entertainment factor, but just for the feeling of that was a game that we really had to win if we wanted to push on from then and do something with the season. We did win it, and we did push on and do something with the season.
Well, there you go. Now, if I was to pick mine, I mean, an honourable mention would be to a game against Kilmarnock at Dens where we were 2-0 down and ended up winning 3-2 with a last-minute winner. I mean, Dundee have conceded that many last minute winners against them this season. I mean, I couldn't even begin to count them. But we got one that day for ourselves. Larkesh scored, and they're my favourite games. Like, winning 3-2 is my favourite way to win a game. Either being 2-0 down and winning 3-2, or you go 1-0 up, they equalise. You go 2-1 up, they equalise, and then you win. It's just the best way to win a game, in my opinion. But and it's the best scoreline. But as a Dundee fan, you can't look past the game at Tannadice. I mean, I know that people will be like, bitter blue-nosed bastard who always goes on and all they want to do is beat United, but they hadn't won at Tannadice for Dunke's years. It was no good enough, really. They should. Some of the games that they didn't win at Tannadice in that run were really poor.
There was a couple of close calls. I remember back in what would it have been, 2012. I can't remember the guy. He went on to play for Wraith Rovers after use. I think he scored, and then Daly, I think, rescued a point in the last minute of that game. And that was, I remember sitting there thinking, oh God, the record's coming. And then now, thankfully it didn't, and then it's obviously stayed for another, 10, 12 years after that, up until that game this season.
The worst one for me was the season that United got relegated when Pat Lehman was the manager, and Dundee were 2-0 up, and battering United, and cruising. Scott Bain got sent off, and they went on to draw the game 2-2 while last minute equaliser. They had 10 men, but United were shite that season, and Dundee had a decent team, and they should have won that day. But yeah, going back to that game, it was Dundee were absolutely outstanding in that first half. It's the best they've played that season.
You know what, that first half is the best I've ever seen Dundee play. It honestly is. I remember sitting there just thinking, what is going on here? This is just a capitulation from United. But honestly, the best 45 minutes I've ever seen from any Dundee team, and certainly not to make excuses, but I think our first 45 minutes, it's the worst I'd seen since we got 9 off of Celtic. It really was. But Dundee, it just seemed every time you got the ball, you had acres of space, you had umpteen men sort of to pass the ball to that were unchallenged, and every time you got it, we were all thinking, oh, here they go again, they're ready to go and put the ball in the net.
I mean, I think it's a bit. So, I don't really count the first game of the season, because you're still kind of getting to know your new teammates. Teams are getting to know their new formations, blah blah blah, and there's still 4 weeks left of the transfer window. United signed Dalby 3 weeks after that game, so you've got that, but you really get a picture of how good each other are in the games after that.
Totally.
And the 2 games at Dens that were within a few weeks of each other in the winter, Strain and Ferry were like flying fullbacks, and they were definitely part of the strengths that United had. It didn't terrify you as such, because it's not really the right word to use, but it was. You could tell that they were part of the way that United were playing, and the strengths that United were using. The 2 of them were just absolutely terrible in that game at Tannadice. I mean, the epitomises the one where Ferry gets the ball, he takes a hospital touch, and then doesn't even track back. I mean,
does that lead to one of the goals that got chopped off?
Yeah. No, I think it was the McGee goal where he swept it in from one side of the box to the other. You could forgive him. Well, you wouldn't have forgiven him at the time, but you could understand
the
him.
The rumour was before that game is that him, Gallagher and Graham weren't going to play because apparently the 3 of them were injured.
Well, you could tell.
You could tell, and again, I don't like to be sounding like I'm making excuses. Oh, you only beat us because our defenders were injured, but I think you could tell that none of the 3 of them were their usual self. They were very, very under par. And if they all were injured or carrying knocks, it was quite clear. But take nothing away from Dundee, he's totally capitalised on that, and he's gave us a bit of a schooling in our own patch, which was hard for me to watch. But take the good with the bad.
I mean, like I was going to say, like you could understand when he's taking a touch if it's heavy, he's making a mistake. But what's unforgivable for me is that he then follows that up by just kind of meandering back, and if he busts his arse to get back, Jordan McGee's not getting the same amount of time on that shot, if he even gets it.
Totally. And like I say, with Ferry, my player of the season, partly because of his energy and his pace and his willingness to burst, he's got to get back. It's not like that was a common theme with him. That was that was a total one-off for him and the other defenders in that game. You know what I mean? It's like you're sitting there and you feel disappointed almost. It's like, come on, I know you're a lot better than this. How are you not playing better? But obviously, if they were carrying knocks, that's why.
Well, it takes on to the, as I'm looking at the score there, it's now 3-2 on aggregate. Livingston have scored, obviously. My goal this season would be Adewumi. He scored a goal in midweek against Motherwell at Dens. He cut in from the Dundee's left and curled it right into the far corner. And it was one of the goals, you know, when a goal goes in and your reaction is to go, oh, like that, rather than your usual way that you would celebrate a goal. It was one of them because you just didn't expect it. I remember being at Ibrox last season, the boy Cantwell scored a cross basically that went right over the goalie and it was like 50,000 people with that reaction.
Yeah.
But it was a kind of different one. But
aye. It's one of the great football noises that.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of these. It's like when the ball hits the net or the ball hits the woodwork, and you can just hear it and nothing else. It's a great noise at a football stadium.
So the official Dundee one was the McGee one at Tannadice. It was a cracking goal, but my favourite one would be the Adewumi one against Motherwell. I thought it was an absolute cracker. Now, the next section we've got written down is our Player of the Year. I'm going to go with Simon Murray. There's absolutely no debate. He's been outstanding. He's been our top goal scorer. He's been our catalyst. So we'll just move on to you because you'll probably have more candidates for it.
I think that's a fair pick from you. I think Simon Murray's he's got to be your Player of the Year. The goals he's honestly, I think if it's not for Simon Murray, you have been relegated this season, to be honest with you, or at least in the playoff spot. I think his goals have probably kept you up this season.
Yeah.
I would argue. But my Player of the Year, there's definitely a few candidates. I think how many players could I narrow it down to? I could narrow it down to maybe 3: Savelge, Ferry, and obviously Sam Dalby. 3 fantastic players that have been crucial to us this season, and really, without them, we would not finish where we finished. I don't think. Dalby, what a goal scorer! Such a brilliant goal scorer. He knows where to be. He knows where the goal is. You get the ball in at a height, cross the ball in. Chances are he's going to get it on target, if not score. Savelge in the middle of the park, he just commands the game sometimes. You know, he's not a big physical player, but he gets the ball at his feet and he can pick a pass and he harries midfielders and he gets on them. But my player of the season, it's got to be Will Ferry for reasons that I've mentioned before on the show. Pace, energy, passion, desire, 110% every week. You can't ask for much more than that, and he's been a good player to watch. Like you, I like the old school sort of 4-4-2 style, wingers and fullbacks bombing up the wings, and he does that at every possible opportunity. Bombs up the wing. He's got a good bit of skill as well. He's good with the ball at his feet. He can take players on and get past players and put a good ball in the box. And you know what? As a fan, it's what you want to see. It's entertaining. It gets you off your seat. It gets people shouting. So yeah, he's my Player of the Year for the entertainment factor alone.
Well, for somebody who hasn't watched very much of United and has seen them 3 or 4 times in the flesh, it's kind of hard to argue. But we'll move on to one of our last sections, and that is looking forward to next season. And what I'll do is, I've got a list of the under contract players from each side for next season. So I'll quickly run through them. We've got Dundee up first. We've got John McCracken. Basically, this is centre half FC. We've got John McCracken, Ethan Ingram, Clark Robertson, Ryan Ashley, Amari Samuels, Cesar Garza, who's on loan until January, along with Victor Lopez. We've got Simon Murray, Finn Robertson, Billy Cometio, Luke Graham, Harry Sharp, Trevor Carson, and Aaron Donnelly. Bear with me, I'll get United's. We have Ryan Strain, Vico Savelge, Ross Graham, Trapanovsky, Will Ferry, Jack Newman, Craig Sibbald, Glenn Middleton. Has he signed a new contract?
He's been offered the new contract. I'm not sure if he's actually signed it yet, but there are talks ongoing to sign him, which has been controversial. Okay. Middleton's chalk and cheese with United fans. When he's good, he's good. But I suppose a bit like Scott Tiffany, what you were saying, he peaks and troughs where he's good. He's such a good player. But there are some weeks where he's not quite the same level as he maybe was the week before. And he's a bit of a... If it's going bad, I feel that he's one of the players that gets a lot of the stick, even when sometimes it isn't his fault. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he signs a new deal. If he does, will I be happy? Yeah, probably will be.
So this list might not be entirely accurate, but then we've got, after Glenn Middleton, we've got Kai Fotheringham, Jort van der Sand, Dave Richards, Miller Thompson, Meshach from earlier, a bunch of young boys, Richard the Dada, and we've got Rory McLeod, who I actually thought had left United, but I've just clicked on it there.
He
It
was
was
on
only
loan
on
at
loan at
Palace, I think.
Southampton.
Southampton, aye. Yeah, he was only
Yeah,
on loan, which is a funny one. It's no often a club like Southampton will loan a player from Dundee United. Normally it's
it must have
the
been
other
to have
way
a look at
about.
him. That.
It must have been, aye. But I think I've only seen him in a few games, and when would it have been? He played a few games up front with Stephen Fletcher the season we got relegated, and I always thought we had a bit of a player there. He looked like a good little striker, but I think he went on loan to Forfar, and I honestly can't remember how he done up there, but he's just obviously not impressed the coaches.
Well, according
staff
to
at Tannadice.
Wikipedia, if you bear with me whilst I find it again, according to Wikipedia, he played 7 games for Forfar and didn't score a goal.
Yeah, I did think it
Now,
was
I don't know how accurate that is.
I do. If I remember correctly, it wasn't the best loan spell he's had, and those numbers certainly back that up.
Mm. Oh well, so from a Dundee point of view, next season, I mean, I would say sign centre halves. Their best centre half, in my opinion, is Shaughnessy, and he's the only bloody one that's not under contract. Now, a lot of the time, when you're saying, oh, you're conceding loads of goals, your defenders must be terrible. Now, yeah, you can say that, and yeah, there is an element of truth behind that. I'm not saying that they're terrible individual players, but they've maybe just not had their best of seasons. But I think a lot of Dundee's problems is because they're far too open as a team. Their midfield is just, I mean, Silla is a, see when Silla's on it, he's a great player, but he can't do everything by himself. And I just feel like we were far too wide open in midfield. Our defence was so easy to get at, and that's not helping either.
I did think that in that opening day derby, it seemed like every time we went forward, there was no defenders there to cover United players that were going forward. You just looked very, very open at the back in that opening day derby.
So if whoever the new manager is, I would be concentrating on kind of getting a bit of strength through that midfield. You might even ship out a couple of the defenders to get more in. Shaughnessy might re-sign. There's no need for a goalie. We've got 3 of them. But we need midfielders and we need strikers. Yeah. So, yeah, that'll time will tell. I mean, I did see a news article that if Sean Maloney gets the job, he wants to bring Jordan Rhodes in. That's a blast through the past. He's 35 now. He was on loan at Mansfield last season.
Cannot believe he's still kicking a ball.
What you reckon for United? Where do you think you need to improve?
So we're losing a lot of key players this season. Boys like Lucas Stevenson, Sam Dalby, the goalkeeper Walton, Declan Gallagher. You could argue we're losing that spine of the team. So we need to make sure we've got cover for Dave Richards. I've not seen too much of him, so it's early to tell if he's going to be a suitable number 1 for us next season. Gallagher, an older defender, a slower defender, but a solid defender, and he will be a miss, given the fact that we're losing Adebayoga as well, the other sort of centre-half that's played with him for a lot of the season, has a gaping hole that needs to be fixed, needs to be filled. Lucas Stevenson in midfield, what a player, energetic, covers a lot of ground in the midfield, talented on the ball, talented off the ball as well. He'll be a huge miss, and obviously the goals that Dalby brings, how do you replace those goals? How do you go and find a striker that you're guaranteed to get as many, if not more, goals from? That's a very, very difficult decision. So the recruitment's got to be spot on for us if we want to build on last season. It really does, and I think the fact that we've got this European potential next season, we've got a guaranteed tie in the Conference League. That's one of these things that you can look at and say there's a wee bit of extra cash coming in there. There's a wee bit of an extra appeal for players coming in there. A couple of games in Europe. Hopefully we can use that to lure sort of as good, if not better, replacements in. But yeah, I think the recruitment staff in Goodwin they've got a bit of a job to do over the summer to replace these really highly influential players that we've lost back to their parent clubs on loan this summer. And boys that are out of contract like Gallagher. I was a lot of United fans saying that they should have offered him another year deal, another 2 years deal, a year as a player, then the second year as a sort of player stroke youth coach kind of thing. But yeah, there's a lot of influential players that we'll need to replace, so the recruitment's got to be spot on.
I guess you're in a bit of a similar situation to Dundee last season, where Dundee came up and pretty much put their whole trust into signing a team for loan players.
Clubs do it these days. It's a cheap option to get talent in, but you've got that problem where at the end of the season, it's like, right, we've done so well with this good team, but it's no our team really, so how do we build on this? We can't go and buy all these players that have got us to the position we're in. How do we then go and buy more players in that are going to be as good at minimum? Because you don't want players that are worse, you want at minimum a player that's going to be as good, if not better. It's a very expensive thing to build on, unless you maybe want to go back down the loan route the season after and hope that you can find players that are just as good on loan.
Well, I tell you something, it's no paid off for Dundee, because this season they never got their signings right. They got their signings right last season, and they had a nucleus of a good team coming up from the Championship to add to, but this season they never got them right, and they've suffered from it. But you touched on United being in Europe. The DUFC stats on Twitter X, these are a list of some potential teams. I think there are more that United can face, and they probably will be seeded, which is good for United. But they've got either Larne or Dungannon Swifts from Northern Ireland. You could have St Pat's or Drogheda from Ireland. IVES from Finland. KA or Valur from Iceland. Cliftonville from Northern Ireland again. SJK from Finland. NSI from the Faroes, or Haverford West County from Wales. I mean, that's if they're going to regionalise it. There are other teams from elsewhere. You can get your trip to Kazakhstan if you fancy it. Yeah, you must be looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm not looking forward to the draw, because knowing United's luck, we'll end up getting drawn against the one team that's in that draw that's got millions of pounds in the bank, great players. We always seem to get drawn against good teams. Dynamo Moscow, AZ Alkmaar, teams that are a lot bigger than us and have certainly got far, far bigger budgets than us. But there's a lot of opportunity in there as well. If we can get maybe a Dungannon Swifts or a St Pat's, or Cliftonville, you'd like to think that you can go and win that tie and then get another tie after it, but
I think if I was a United fan,
it's easier said than done.
I think if I was a United fan, I'd probably edged more towards having a team from Northern Ireland as opposed to the Republic, because one, I don't think the Northern Irish League is as strong, and two, you've got to think about when you're playing the Irish teams on the League of Ireland, they're in their season. And I mean, the last time that happened, I think, was when Motherwell played Sligo, and everybody thought Motherwell would beat them, and I think they were kind of battered in the end.
They did.
And it was probably half because Sligo were match fit. 15 games into their season. So, the list, the draw here, the second qualifying round, which I think is when United enter, the draw date is June the 18th. Now, whilst you guys are getting a tan in Dublin or the Faroe Islands, we've got to play in that shitty fucking group stage of the League Cup.
Which is something that's the best thing about European football. It's not the actual tie in Europe, it's the avoidance of that bloody group stage, pre-season friendly group stage against teams like Peterhead and God knows who else. It's the most frustrating competition format of any cup in Scotland.
The only thing I like about it is you get to tick Grims off, hopefully, that you've not been to. Now, when they first brought it in, they regionalised it, but now they've opened up so you could play against anybody. A couple of years ago we drew Bonnyrigg, and you're like, brilliant, never been to Bonnyrigg, you can tick it off, when else are we going to play them? But then they got Bonnyrigg again this season, so the charms wore off, and you're standing in a glorified junior ground effectively, because they have come from the juniors, and look, they're the level that they're at, but you're standing on a grass embankment, trying your hardest not to get bitten by the midges. So, yeah, it's good for that, but hopefully we get to a few more new Grims. The draw for that's on Wednesday, I think, so
I think it is coming
we're keeping an eye on that, and hoping that we get Edinburgh City, and we'll have to stand 10 mile away on that track that they've got. But yeah, moving on.
I'll just say it again about that competition. What frustrates me so much about that group stage, it's killed the glamour pre-season friendlies that you used to get. United have had Barcelona at Tannadice a couple of times, Everton, Blackburn Rovers, Newcastle United, Sunderland. good games against teams that you want to go and see in friendlies, but you replace them with games against Bonnyrigg Rose or Alloa Athletic or whatever. It's not the same challenge, and it cannot be as good a. I'm talking about it like it's a pre-season and you're using these League Cup group stage games as a pre-season for preparation for the league, when you really shouldn't be, because at the end of the day it is a League Cup and it's something that you want to be challenging for. But I think a lot of teams do use it as a pre-season, and you know yourself, what is it? It's 3 games you play in that group stage. If you a couple of dodgy results and you're not getting through that group, you know what I mean? It's very easy to not get through.
Well, I think out of the Premier League teams that have been in it every year, and we're one of them, I think since I think it was 2016 was the first year, and we never got through it that year, and we never got through it in Tony Dock's first season, but we've got through it in every other year. My issue with it is, I don't necessarily mind, after all my moaning about it earlier, I don't necessarily mind it in the sense of what it is. A group stage is a wee bit different from what it usually was, because before it was needing updated before as well, by the way. We'll all forget that. The format before was 4 or 5 midweek games, then all of a sudden you were in the semi-final, if you were lucky enough to get there. But my main issue with it is the European teams come in, they need to win 2 games and they're at Hampden. Dundee get through their group stage against the teams that they're getting through. They'll get a Falkirk or a Motherwell or something like they have in recent seasons and get through the last 16, and then they get their usual trip to Rangers at Ibrox in the quarter-final, and that's Rangers' second game of the competition and they're at Hampden.
Yeah, it's definitely an advantage for the big boys.
It's not fair, is it?
I mean, definitely advantage.
I get that they're in Europe, but there needs to be a bit more thought into it. Maybe go back to the way it was or whatever. I don't know.
I think you just remember Celtic and Rangers. They're the hard done by teams, so just tone it down a bit there, right? Tone it down, Andy.
Yeah. Moving on, just to finish up, we'll touch on Scotland. So I've got the squad here. The goalies are Angus Gunn, Robbie McCrory and Kieran Slicker. The defenders, Josh Doig, Grant Hanley, Jack Henry, Max Johnston, Scott McKenna, Nathan Patterson, Anthony Ralston, Andy Robertson, John Suter and Kieran Tierney. The midfield are Connor Barron, Lewis Ferguson, Billy Gilmore, Andy Irving, John McGinn, Scott McTominay, Lennon Miller, and the strikers are Che Adams, Kieran Bibby, Tommy Conway, George Hurst and James Wilson. Now, I'm sure a few of them will probably pull out before the games, given that they're friendlies against Iceland and Liechtenstein. It's hardly the most appealing of friendlies. No, and I just find it incredible that Grant Hanley's still in that squad.
Aye. I find that incredible. He's still playing football, never mind getting a call.
He'll be in that squad in 10 years' time.
Aye, definitely.
He's one of life's great survivors. I mean, I actually used to think that he got too much stick. He was, up until maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, I thought the centre of the back three, there probably wasn't a better player that we had other than him. But now, I mean, he's just been released for Birmingham City.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going into the Championship now, and a lot of the players are playing at that level, but he was playing in League One.
It's not the level you want your players to be playing at if they're getting international call-ups. You can only imagine that his inclusion in the squad is for experience. You know, he's a player that's been there and done that. He's been to international competitions with Scotland. He's been there with the highs. He's been there with the lows. And he must be a good player to have in the dressing room around the youngsters. You know what I mean? He must be able to guide these guys into the squad and sort of let them know what it's all about. So I can see the advantages there. But as a first-team player, I think he's definitely past it. But he seems to get a game, and I wouldn't say when he does get a game he's terrible, but
no, I wouldn't say that
he's definitely a player that we should, I think, maybe think about replacing at centre half.
I mean, I'm just trying to think. I mean, we're obviously not blessed with centre halves or blessed with strikers. We seem to have an absolute gluttony of really good midfielders. I mean, I don't think Gilmore and McTominay will be very good. They'll probably still be bloated for winning the Scudetto.
Aye.
But I'm trying to think of who else would come in if you didn't have Hanley. Because all I'm saying is I can't believe he's in the squad. I'm trying to think of who would actually replace him.
Is he there through necessity? Probably. That probably plays a part of it.
What I'm thinking is that Kenny McLean, Steve Clark's boy, he's no there. He must be injured.
Yeah, he must be. Aye. He must be injured because he's always almost a guaranteed starter for Steve Clark, is he?
Yeah. Aye. I mean, Kenny McLean is another one of them boys who because he's not your Lewis Ferguson, or he's not, he gets stick before he's even played.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes you're like, come on, Steve, like maybe
he can be a frustrating player at times. He's one of these players that I wouldn't say he's a bad player, but he's one of these players that can frustrate you at times when you're watching. But I think he definitely does contribute to the national side. You know, if he didn't, he wouldn't be getting a game and he wouldn't be getting a call up. But yeah, he's definitely he can be a frustrating player at times.
Well, we'll be at the Iceland game, which I'm so looking forward to. But yeah, the friendlies are never the greatest. Looking forward to the World Cup qualifiers starting and hopefully get a wee jaunt to America next year.
Yeah, that would be very good.
But yeah, so I think that's coming towards the end. If you haven't,
if we've not bored you to death already,
next week. If we've not bored you to death, well, this is kind of a wee teaser, of a tester, should I say, episode. We're going to leave it for just now and kind of take it up again when we've got more to talk about in the summer. Transfers, the fixtures have been announced, United getting punted out of Europe, Dundee getting punted out of the group stage for Bonnie Rosa after they've slagged off their ground. If you haven't seen us on socials, we are at Sandeman ST Pod on X, and we are This Sandeman Street Pod on Instagram. So give us a follow on that. Thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your summer.